Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Can't complain. Getting ready. How are you?
Man, today was brutal, productive. So it
That's
was a very
good.
good
That's
day.
good. Awesome.
Went sometime today it turned into a blizzard out though.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. The other day we just about all our snow was gone. We had rain come through, it was 40 degrees. And then lunchtime I looked out the window, it was like white out.
Okay, wait a second. What's going on here?
Oh, hopefully that's not my internet. Hmm.
It could be mine. Mine's kind of been acting up today.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Maybe it'll go smooth.
Yeah, I hope so. Fingers crossed.
I'm going to put you on spotlight here. Bring you to the front. I guess I'll make you co-host as well, just because. How's that? Now that I put you on spotlight, I'll do that.
No worries.
Did you have anything to share today, Aaron? Well,
Yeah, I was gonna.
yeah, I can make you host here before we get started. Yeah, I'll put you back up here then.
Oh, yeah, I'll share my screen in just a second. I just wanna. I'm gonna look into my computer real fast and grab something.
Cindy, are you there?
Are you there?
How's everybody doing today?
I am. I'm here. I'm just, I have my 4-year-old with me who's watching Spider-Man in the background. So that's why I have myself on mute. So I apologize.
So you're saying your son's not watching Aaron,
Uh,
learning about
yeah, well, he can,
foreclosures?
but yeah, he's gonna listen, but Spider-Man will also be listening too. So we're doing both.
Excellent.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, I guess I'll just kind of get into it. How many people we got in here?
Right now it says give everybody a few more minutes. No, I took your spotlight off. Yep. Maybe because your video's not on. Can't seem to put you back on spotlight. There you go. There we go. So Aaron, where are you hiding out these days?
Up in Wasilla, Alaska. Kind of a little tight neck up here.
We were just talking about that the other day about with you and Jesse up there. You guys are growing quite the little community of real estate investors. Are they all
That is true.
well?
Yeah, that's very true. We just got 2 more yesterday, actually.
All right.
Yeah, so that's super cool.
Well, not everybody here is probably familiar with who you are. Why don't you give us a little background? How'd you come
Yeah,
into
absolutely.
real estate investing? And
Yeah, my name's Aaron Green. I recently got into, well, it's been about almost 2 years now since I've been into real estate investing. I sold my house. I kind of got a big whip of it. I was doing a lot of construction down in the state of Arizona, and I was kind of getting the behind the scenes work of everything and understanding how investors are doing it, just kind of not being able to pull the trigger on how to do it myself. But I owned my own house, and I was able to sell that, and it kind of put me in a position to be able to invest a little bit. I was able to collect quite a bit of equity out of it. And essentially it was kind of just full speed ahead from there. I was able to really hit the ground running. I ended up moving my family up here to Alaska from Arizona during that period, and I just kind of deep dived into real estate investing. And for a while, I mean, with so many different ways of investing in real estate, there's just this an endless cycle of which way you can go. There's so many different avenues and stuff like that, and how to focus your time is really important on being intentional. So it took a long time for me, not really a long time, but it took me a while to figure out exactly what my niche was and being able to focus in one area. And that was being able to help people. And ultimately, I had an experience in helping people out of foreclosure. So that's where I was able to kind of put those two together and kind of make a system with my partners as well to tackle homelessness as well as foreclosures. So that's kind of our investment strategy within our business is we purchase properties out of foreclosure and then we redirect them back into the community for foreclosure or homeless relief and victims of domestic violence. So that's kind of where we stand as far as how that goes. I mean, foreclosures are real big investment strategy. We also do a lot of agent outreach, so that's a big lead source for us as well, as far as the chasing foreclosures and agent outreach is our big go-tos. So what we're kind of talking about today, I think, is mainly along the lines of foreclosures. And so essentially, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with what foreclosures are, but I'm sure somebody's got a good idea. As far as that goes, most of the time when somebody takes out a mortgage with a bank and they fail, or they start getting into a position where they get behind, or they start getting behind on payments and not making their payments, they're like, all right, I'll catch up here in a little bit. And most of the times they're just sticking their head in the sand and trying to come up with an excuse to, oh, I'll get to it later, I'll pull it back out later, I'll take a loan out with somebody. And ultimately it gets down to that last minute where the bank creates an auction date, and then it just really buries them that much farther. So most of the time it takes about 4 months in default is what they call it within a mortgage lending or a mortgage servicer. They call it in default, and they'll put out a public notice. So all that information is actually public. It's open to the public. You can get it from courthouses and stuff like that, as far as all your liens and notice of defaults and how far they're behind and stuff like that. It's all public notice. So you can get it from your courthouse. And it takes about 4 months for them to issue that notice of default, where the auction date comes into place. And then that's where they buckle down. And then so your action as far as being able to just keep pushing. And so I guess I'm maybe pushing a little too far. As far as you need to create this lead and be of value to these people. So most of the time when people are getting into a position where they're in default, their phones are constantly ringing. Their bank's calling them saying, hey, you're late this many months, you're behind this much on your electrical bill, whatever that may be. And essentially, they're tired of getting calls. So when you're calling and trying to prospect with these leads, you need to be able to relate with them, create a story and some sort of relation with them in order to kind of build that rapport and build that trust with them. Let them know that you're not there to just grab a whole bunch of money from them, or you're not trying to take advantage of them. You really got to kind of chase these with the ability of helping people out, full value, and being able to provide that circle of trust with them is ultimately what's going to allow you to scale your business and be able to move forward in investing with foreclosure strategies. And ultimately, with my time, as far as being an investor, I've attempted multiple other deals and different types of structures and stuff like that. And I find that foreclosures, being able to add value, is just much more easier than trying to go out and get some wholesale deal at 70 cents on the dollar. a cash offer or something like that. It just, nowadays with this market, it just doesn't make sense.
So, Aaron, every state's rules and laws around foreclosure are different. So when you're working in your market, I guess maybe that's my first question. Are you only looking at foreclosures in Alaska, or are you looking at other areas as well?
So right now, our total investment strategy is mainly focused in Arizona, or not Arizona, Alaska, and Nevada. And that is our go-to for being able to connect with the state. We have good connections with the state of Alaska, which allows us to do what we do with the homeless work. And we're trying to venture kind of out of Alaska into different states, but Nevada is going to be our next one. But as far as foreclosures, we work nationwide, so we're able to assist other people throughout all 50 states in regards to their situation on whatever foreclosure that is.
Do you see then a lot of rules and laws that are different from state to state?
That's a good question. There are a lot of different laws regarding like redemptions and stuff like that, or how long or even if you're able to stop auctions in certain places utilizing certain tactics and stuff like that. And we'll kind of get farther into tactics and approaches kind of here in a couple minutes. But as far as like the laws and regulations, there are, and they kind of buffer from state to state, but a majority of the time, I mean, it's definitely something that we can handle. We work through a lot of probate stuff, and as well as people are inheriting or even purchasing properties like tax liens, and it turns out there's a mortgage in first position on it from previous owner. So a lot of the times we're able to help those out with a temporary restraining order or a notice to intervene and other documents like that. Those are great questions. So a lot of the reasons I like to use pre-foreclosures as an investment strategy is there's just tons of opportunities to be able to help out these sellers. So I like to approach my positions rather than looking at a wholesale fee, or I'm going to look at this as a buy and hold investment. I'm approaching these people with, how can I get them out of their situation? How can I essentially save their day, be able to prevent them from potentially becoming homeless if they lose their house? Because a lot of the times these people, they put their head in the sand, and it comes down to 2 weeks before their auction date and they're like, hey, I need help. And then that's when these people are finally getting back to you. A lot of these times these leads can be pushed for 3 or 4 months, so you need to start building that pipeline of leads and consistently following up with these people, letting them know that you're there to add value or whatever that may be. Like, even if it's just asking, hey, do you guys need groceries or a case of water or whatever that may be, diapers for your kids. Like, a lot of that value right there, you just asking those questions are going to make them kind of like, all right, this person really kind of feels for you. They're sympathizing for your situation. And it also helps, like, a lot of the time, sometimes people have been in this situation themselves as investors where they've been foreclosed on. So they kind of have a story they can relate, or their grandparents or something they can kind of relate with as far as putting that together. So a lot of the times the biggest goal is to save their financial future. And what that means is saving their credit and being able to give them the ability to go get a new rental, or sometimes, very rarely, you're able to convince them, or not convince them, be able to allow them to stay in the property. It takes a lot of vetting in certain circumstances to be able to allow that. But most of the time you're being able to provide them value, because most foreclosures are essentially, they're upside down. There's not a lot of equity in them, for the most part. Some people have no idea what equity is, and they kind of just go upside down. And I've come across situations where there's $200,000, $300,000 in equity, and they had no idea how to remove it or pull it out. But the thing is you're adding that value, and
We'll have to come back and discuss that, because we have a couple deals that came from the group that look just like that, where the amount of equity owed on the property, the first glance at it is like, well, I don't know what to do with this.
It's honestly unreal. And depending on some of the states and stuff like that, I have private money lenders that are just willing to, they eat up deals like that. And they offer good assignments, or they'll work with you as private money lenders, or whatever that may be. If you're getting into innovation agreements and stuff like that, and ultimately with foreclosures, there's a lot of opportunities on how you're able to structure these deals. So that's a really good point right there.
Yep.
But as far as, like giving that value to somebody and making sure their financial future is good, it really helps, and it's kind of relieving knowing that you're able to help these people out of the situation. You're able to save them from foreclosure. And like essentially, if you go into foreclosure, it literally can scar your record for 7 to 10 years. And that could be, that could come down to getting a new phone. You're a lot of times when you're applying for a new phone, you have to run your credit, and it's gonna let them know that there's foreclosures on your record. Most of the time, phone bills don't matter, but when it comes down to cars and houses and larger items, they're gonna look at these things and say, this guy's not a qualified lender, or somebody who's a mortgagee. So that really stipulates their ability to move forward in life is a scarred record with foreclosure on there. And us being able to kind of come in there and purchase properties in a creative manner is ultimately what is extremely powerful to these sellers. And a lot of the times we're able to even, cover up to, about a year, 6 months of moving costs, and being able to allow them to float their bills until they're able to get back on their feet in a good financial situation. So, that's extremely powerful for these people, rather than waiting to go to auction and getting this thing at a third of the price. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of value as far as purchasing pre-foreclosures prior than getting them from an auction. Some deals don't necessarily work as like a subject to. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what a subject to is. A subject to is where you're taking over an existing debt. And that's a lot of the times how we're able to approach these creative foreclosures, because there's an existing debt. And a lot of the times foreclosures come from an IRS tax lien, or just other state taxes, or mortgage default, or homeowners associations trying to foreclose on the property for late damages and stuff like that. So within pre-foreclosures, there's pre-foreclosure all the way to post-foreclosures, and there's a lot of steps in between that. And so pre-foreclosures is where, homeowners haven't lost the possession of their home yet, and they haven't exactly got an auction date. And a lot of the times, this is where you're going to find your deal, right here prior to auctions. You can go get an auction for a cash price, but a lot of the times new investors don't exactly have a whole bunch of capital to go purchase at an auction. So being at pre-foreclosure, this gives us the upper hand to purchasing prior to auction, as well as being able to being able to purchase deeds and mortgages that have lower interest rates rather than the current interest rates we have today. So auctions are essentially after the bank has taken possession of the property, and they list it at a county auction where there's a courthouse, and people go and make bids on this house for cash offers, which is a lot of the times 20 to 40% of the value, or depending on what the lender's trying to claim out of the property. So if auctions fail to sell their house, this is where an REO comes in place. And that is where the bank still owns the property. It didn't sell at auction, and they just try and list it with a realtor. And then that's where you're able to make pretty good offers on properties. They're still going to come down to cash offers. Banks tend to not work with creative deals when you're purchasing an REO. And the reason that is because they're lenders, and if you do want to try and do a creative option, they're going to ask for your credit and your social and pull all the credentials, and you're gonna have that affect your debt to income ratio, and that's ultimately what we're trying to avoid. That way it allows us to invest in more areas.
Aaron, is you and your group, are you buying more than just at the pre-foreclosure stage? Are you buying the post?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're trying that post foreclosure. That's kind of a new strategy that Tom and I are working on. Tom, Devin, and I are working on, and that's kind of where these auctions are. They've already sold, and say if a property's been sold for 100. Let me see if I got a whiteboard. Hold on. This might help out a little bit. Maybe not.
Let's see. Who can share? Should have access to a.
Anyways, so if there's a house that's listed for, all right, for post foreclosure, an auction it already happened, and the debt owed on that property was $100,000. But if that house had an extra $100,000 in equity in there and it sold for 200,000 at auction, that $100,000 difference right there is held in an escrow account. And what they do is they send a notice to the house that they foreclosed on saying that there's equity, or they call it overages. They call it overages. And there's essentially that equity that it sold for additionally than what the lender was trying to search for. That goes into an account, an escrow account, waiting for them to claim that money. And essentially they send a notice to the house that's already foreclosed on, and they're no longer going to be there. So the state they have a plan where they wait a certain amount of time. It's a per state basis as far as the amount of time it does, but each one they'll hold that amount of money. So there's millions of dollars sitting in this escrow account from all these foreclosures, and they'll sit on this money until a certain amount of time, and it allows the state to collect this money at the end of that if the sellers or the homeowners weren't able to claim that fund. Does that make sense?
Well, how often do you see overages after a foreclosure?
It's actually quite often, especially nowadays. I feel like I've been seeing them a lot more as far as I'm not so sure on the statistics on why that's happening, but we actually have been seeing a lot of more overages lately. I don't know if it was from pre-COVID, just people had a lot more equity and they were just ill-informed on how to use that equity or do a cash out refinance or a HELOC or whatever that is to get them out of that situation. But a lot of the times the reason there's overages is because they just had equity in that property that wasn't used. So the lender is gonna foreclose on the property for the $100,000. And if that auction it sells for $200,000, that spread right there of $100,000 sits in that account until the homeowner claims it. And most of the time they don't claim it. They have no idea that those overages are sitting in this account because they were never notified.
Well, that's a double heartbreak there.
Exactly.
And their equity, yeah.
Exactly. So what we do is and that all that information is public record for how much they sold for, unless it's a non-disclosure state. All that information is public record, so you can figure out how much it sold for at auction. And if it sold for more than what the lender was owed, there's definitely overages right there. So that's where you build that communication with that seller, or not, they're not even the seller at that point, the homeowner, the old lender or lendee. And you create that relationship with them and say, hey, I can get you, there's some money that's held in an escrow account and I can get you that per you have certain documents that you utilize with this person to guarantee you get that a portion of those overages. That way you're you're getting paid for your work. But you're able to negotiate that with the homeowner on how much they're able to get out of that, because a lot of the times they're left in the dirt and the banks don't care. They're going to foreclose on you regardless.
How do
I
you
mean, I have
track down the people since they've moved out of the house? How do you track down those people?
That's a great question. So a lot of the times, state websites have like a DNR page or where you're able to search plats and see where there's been deed transfers and stuff like that. Each state is different, but 9 times out of 10, they have the public information where there's deeds and plats and any sort of recorded information, and that's going to be in within each district that you're in. And so what you're going to do is just pull that information out to be able to find that. And a lot of the times you're going to be able to find if there was a husband and a wife, or if there was even a lien on the property, or a judgment that had been filed against the property for, like, say, like a judicial claim or a judicial lien. Somebody had gotten into legal trouble and they put a lien against the property. This is all found within that public information on your state's website, wherever,
All right.
whatever state you're in.
So what kind of fee do you charge then for that service?
Oh, for our foreclosure service?
Well, actually for the overages. You're helping somebody collect on that overage.
Absolutely. I normally negotiate with these sellers 40%. So they collect 60%. That way they're obtaining more of the equity side of that, but that all the contract work stipulates us getting 40%.
Excellent.
So if there's $100,000, 40 of it would go to us and 60 would go to the seller.
Yeah, that's a strategy I didn't even think of. I'm sure
Yeah,
there's
it's kind of a new strategy Tom Swan and I are working on. And Tom Swan's my partner. I'm not sure if anybody else knows that name, but you may, Shane or Cindy. But yeah, he's that's kind of a strategy. It's kind of coming up. We're in a class working on that right now. So I mean, it's a newer one to us, so we're just now starting to chase that aspect of it. But we'd be happy to help anybody else trying to look into that strategy.
what's the time frame for that? Is that like they give you 1 year to claim it or 6 months?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a per state basis on how you claim. Some states are 3 months, some states are 6 years. So
Okay.
it really varies on which state it is, and that kind of goes hand in hand with redemption laws, because a lot of the times homeowners, even after the sale of an auction, you can redeem that property if you're paid in full. If that homeowner wants to come back and purchase that property, they're able to, given they pay that total principal balance in full. So there's a lot of redemption laws as far as that. And sometimes you're able to utilize that as an investment strategy too. If you find a homeowner that was in foreclosure and they lost their house however long ago, and if there was a good amount of equity in there, you could pull that right back. It might be a legal battle and fighting whoever was trying to gain control of it, but you potentially might have to be able to collect a new house. But it's kind of a risky situation.
Yeah, some of those states that have created some really long redemption periods that just creates a battle.
Exactly. It
moved
can
in.
pose a problem, but most
Yeah.
of these homeowners, they have no idea about those redemption laws as it is. Some do. So there's a lot of different strategies within that. What's not in this list, what should be, is actually short sales. Short sales are a pretty good opportunity. Most times a deal can't go in such of a creative manner, and you're going to have to negotiate with that mortgage lender for a cash offer that's going to make more sense. A lot of the times it may need too much repairs, and you just have to be able to document the amount of repairs needed. You get a contract in there, get a quote, and that's when you're communicating with your seller. That's prior to an auction, I should say. And you're communicating with the seller and the mortgager. And
So the
that
short
way,
sale has to happen in the pre-foreclosure stage before the sheriff's.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's normally when the house is just completely upside down. they owe more than what the house is worth, and you have to counter negotiate that with the bank, saying, hey, this is how much it's gonna cost to repair it. This is what the property is worth. It's upside down, and then 9 times out of 10, a mortgage lender will work with you and just kind of cut their losses and get some of their money back.
Are banks willing to do short sales, or are there a lot more additional stipulations when you start to get
They're
to?
they it, 9 times out of 10, they'll know when the property's upside down. They'll do their own research on the area and the market analysis. But most of the time, there's not really a hassle, but there is a process, and that process could take anywhere from 1 to 3 months to do a short sale application and achieve that process. And sometimes mortgage lenders, you have to go back and forth with the offers. You know, like 150,000, and they want 200,000. You just got to kind of keep bouncing back and forth and negotiating with them and being able to escalate through these things. And if you're having a lot of hard times, you got to escalate it to an escalation manager and kind of go through the punches on that. So, I mean, that short sales are kind of a strategy that I wouldn't say I avoid, but it is one that I don't normally tend to go to unless the house is just completely upside down. And a lot of the times with a good short sale negotiation, you could walk out with quite a bit of equity.
Then, but you need some time to do the negotiations, correct? You can't wait till there's a week left for the sale.
Exactly. So, and that's kind of where we have a couple postponement options and how we're able to postpone options and give you a little bit of time in order to achieve some of those strategies. So if you're coming up to an auction where you have like a week left and your seller's like, hey, I need to sell now, you still have a little bit of time. You still have possibilities as far as giving you enough time to achieve a loan modification, a short sale, and so forth.
So when you first look at a house, again, the numbers that come to mind are the ones that were sent to me earlier this week. Was the house just obviously upside down, right? Is that one that you should go right to the bank and say, what is the process then to start the short sale?
A lot of the times you just have to download a mortgage assistance application off the lender's website, and then a short sale application. And I apologize, not a mortgage assistant application. And you have to fill out all the docs, and they're going to ask you for quite a bit of information as far as, you know, financial incomes and stuff like that. But at the same time, their biggest concern is understanding the condition of the property. And if you're able to present a large amount of pictures with that, as well as documentation from a potential contractor, that is going to smoothen up the process a whole bunch. If you're just kind of getting into a short sale negotiation and just saying, hey, it's worth this, it's worth that, they're gonna fight you tooth and nail for that.
Right.
So, I mean, as far as you're coming to the position fully aware of what's going on and being able to present them with an accurate construction or a rehab cost will ultimately help you out there tremendously. Whoa. So in 2008, I'm not sure if anybody was in that real estate era at that time, purchasing real estate investments and so forth. But during that time, it was kind of a frantic search for help from anybody. I wasn't investing at that time, but with all this research that I've come across and doing foreclosures, I understand that we're starting to hit this climb back up, very similar to the 2008 market crash. And the reason I'm saying that, it's not the stock market crashing and stuff like that, but with interest rates and inflation, we're going to start seeing a rise in foreclosures due to the amount of people pulling loans that they're not going to be able to satisfy. And kind of as you see in like 2008, when our crash happened, the maximum foreclosure rates didn't meet their max until about 2 years later. So we're in about what we're expected to see in 2023, 2024. It's going to kind of stay the same for the most part from what we've seen in the last year. But come 24 and 25, that's when we're going to start seeing all those mortgages with the 7%, 6.5% rates that are going to start foreclosing. And then that's where we're really going to come into more or less a short sale era. So we're going to come into a lot of short sales because the properties are going to be upside down. It's not going to be worth taking a creative structure for. And there's just kind of a wave that you kind of got to follow and stay in front of. And during this process, you got to be able to transition through that.
One of the things we're seeing now in the numbers, different than 2008, is with COVID, people were allowed to float several months payments before their eviction process or the foreclosure process started. Now the arrears is huge in some of these houses. And the normal redemption period.
So that's very, very true. And a lot that is was COVID forbearance. COVID forbearance was able to allow people to ride it out for months, if not years, on some situations. I'm actually working on a property right now that has the property is worth about 370, and there's a total mortgage balance of 280, and the arrears on it are $83,000. So this property's been in foreclosure for 4 years, and they've just been kind of riding it out, and we just were able to take control of it, and we're actually listing it on the market this week with Carly Romer. I'm not sure if you know who that is, Shane.
No.
But he's another sub-2 student, but he's up here in Alaska. He's also a realtor, and he's going to be our unicorn agent on this.
Ace in the hole.
I'm sorry?
So it's good to have an ace in the hole, unicorn.
Absolutely. And that's the power of agent outreach, is being able to build those relationships with people, because come the time when you have a property that you're like, all right, I'm not going to want to sign this. I'm not going to want to buy and hold this, but I think there's enough equity in here. We could just list it on the market and collect your portion of the money, the equity that you're looking for in the deal. And that's what's extremely powerful with being able to understand your market and being able to network with other agents and other investors around. It's also what allows JVing or joint venturing to be so powerful as well. And we'll kind of get to that here in just a second. Joint ventures are extremely powerful within working on each other's networks and stuff like that. So what I do is I offer a foreclosure service that allows investors to kind of focus on their lead generation and their acquisitions. So what that means is you can go out, chase your foreclosures, go to your courthouses and pick up the leads, and then start dialing them. And as soon as you get the leads and you get all the information needed, and you're able to just pass that on to us, and we will handle all of your information as far as stopping and postponing auctions. We'll do loan modifications, all of the short sale negotiations, and getting pictures and people to walk the property and hiring contractors to do bids. We can handle any of your contract needs and communication with mortgage servicers. We handle any and all things foreclosure. So if you're looking to like double or even triple your investment strategies or your acquisitions, we can handle your behind the scenes work on doing all that. That's extremely powerful, and being able to do that. Just being able to focus on your acquisitions will allow you to build your pipeline and be able to be more consistent with your leads and follow-ups and controlling the situation on the other end.
And is there any state you don't do? Are you in all?
Not at all.
Alright.
All 50.
And you know, we always see the new investor starting out trying to get that first deal. Is this something that is a great strategy for that? Because all they need to do is focus on one little piece, getting that lead, and then handing that baton to your team, so to speak.
Absolutely. I mean, being a new investor, this is going to be that ultimate golden ticket, and being able to know that you have somebody that has your back. You're able to, you're essentially partnering with our company, and partnering with us, we have this expertise of being all things foreclosure. So we're able to handle everything while you're able to just learn and focus on how to build your pitch and being able to present all your value to these sellers. Once you add add the value to the sellers and you have a verbal agreement, that's literally all you got to do is hand over that information. We'll create the contract. We'll figure out and assist you, and we'll walk you through the steps as we go and help you understand what the best deal structure is going to be on this. Because a lot of the times, you know, when you hand us the information and a picture of the mortgage statement, we're going to go through it and essentially kind of do a micro underwriting and be able to help you understand, hey, your best output is this. You're going to be able to make the most money from this if you do this, and things like that. So it's going to be extremely powerful for a new investor to be able to just scale. You're going to be able to take your business over this next course of a year or so of utilizing our services. You're going to be able to focus on just obtaining the leads, and we'll be able to walk you through that. I think Cindy and I were talking about doing a monthly Zoom. That way we can communicate more in depth on all these foreclosure topics and be able to ask, or answer any of your questions. So that's going to be
great to have a couple examples next time, but we actually walk through the numbers and maybe some of that underwriting, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick micro underwriting for sure. Yeah. I will definitely have some more examples that I could put on paper. Once I get down towards the end of this thing, I'll close down the my PowerPoint, and then I might be able to pull up the whiteboard at that point, but I don't know.
Hey, Aaron, are you able to look over at the chat for a second? Just there's some questions in there that I want the answers, or they could answer for.
Sorry.
Yeah, that'd be great. No worries.
I think the last one there was, what fee are you going to charge for the service?
Yeah. So that's a great thing. That's a good question. So a lot of the times if you're a new investor, I would like to kind of work in a JV agreement. That way we're able to teach you on the first deal and kind of walk you through all the loops and stuff like that. That way you're understanding the ins and outs on how to obtain the lead, how to communicate with your seller in the correct way. And that way we'll be able to individually hop on a phone call and be able to navigate the first lead and deal all the way start to finish on your own. That way you guys have that process. But outside of that, once we get past that first deal, we do have that fee where it's going to be a $500 upfront fee and $4,500 at the close of escrow. So, and what that does, I mean, I've kind of explained the processes behind all of that, of what our service does. So that fee, rather than JVing and essentially splitting your equity and having an equity partner in the deal, you're able to just obtain that deal and ride it out with a very minimal acquisitions cost, or essentially it's a marketing cost or marketing fees, because there's multiple steps to an entry fee, and we can kind of get to that in a little bit. But yeah, it's a total of a $5,000 acquisitions fee, and that'll be it at the end of escrow.
And that's for the first one, or is that for like all of them?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's as a per deal basis. So every deal will be a new $5,000 fee.
What's the best way to people to reach out and connect with you? Or you usually have that still coming up in a slide?
I do have a slide.
Well, we'll get there then. Okay. I just want to make sure that you plug yourself and everybody knows how to reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a slide at the end that's got all my Instagram, TikTok, whatever that is, Facebook, and as well as my email and phone number. That way you guys can all reach out to me personally. Like Cindy said, we also have that document up in top. I believe it is a Google Forms document that'll greatly help out the monetization of everything and being able to keep things organized. So that'll really help out if you guys can kind of submit information there. And then you can also personally text me as well. That's not going to be an issue. Diane said, this almost seems unethical on the bank side. I mean, essentially, what seems unethical? If you can unmute her, that would be great. I'd love to kind of see how we can walk.
Okay, so like what you said, whenever they get the house from, when they get the house back and then they've got that money sitting there for however long, their profit or
Yeah, those
whatever.
overages, right?
Yeah, the overages, it's like, oh my gosh, how could somebody go to sleep at night knowing that they've just basically screwed somebody out of their money?
And that's exactly what it is. It's extremely unethical because what they do, they literally go and place a note on the door saying you have this much money in this account, but at the same time,
They know
they're
nobody's
already
there.
there's nobody there.
Yeah.
They've already been kicked out and they're somewhere else. You know what I mean? So it makes no sense for them. It's not like they mail it where it's going to get transferred to a new mailing address. They literally go post it on the door and say, hey, this is what's owed to you.
Yeah, and they know that nobody's there because they're already gone. That's just like
Exactly.
not right.
So the state, they collect it and it sure as hell isn't going to the streets.
No.
Fixing potholes and stuff.
What do they do with that after a certain amount of time? If nobody,
I wouldn't even know what they do with it. Honestly, it's probably going to go into the hands of some people who aren't going to put it to use. It's not going back to the taxpayers.
right. Okay.
So yeah, essentially the state just eats it up and they call that.
It's absorbed.
Yeah, they absorb it essentially. So there's a few different ways we're going to try and present this to people. I don't know how many of you are familiar or even investing in real estate actively or how new you are. So the reason I want to do a JV with you is more or less to be able to build your guys' confidence. We have the deal flow to be able to satisfy our needs. I just want to be able to help you guys and be able to give you the confidence you need to be able to chase these pre-foreclosures or any other foreclosure tactic. And what that's going to do is be able to walk you through every single step of the process and give you the confidence to be able to go out and confidently chase these leads and be able to bring them consistently in. That way you're consistently closing deals, whether you're wholesaling or taking these on as a buy and hold. I don't know how many of you are buy and hold investors or wholesalers at the moment. Who all knows what wholesaling is? Can we get that in the chat?
Oop, I was muted there. Aaron, we have a question from Jane as well.
Yeah.
Jane, you got your hand?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
hi,
get her up
sorry,
here.
I'm trying to unmute and undo my camera. Sorry. By the way, thank you so much for what a great service. I just want to say that off the top. And you're making it accessible to people who want to break in and not breaking their bank. So I just want to point that out, that I really like your business model.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of questions. I have like 3. First, I've heard about the overages, and I've been exploring that in my state, which is California. And, you know, it's ridiculous here how expensive things are. So there's quite a lot of overages that I'm seeing. I've got on a platform called Retran that's providing me info on various overages that are happening within Southern California.
Okay.
And I'm trying to, the thing that gets me is like you mentioned how you find out who the original buyers are, but I'm trying to figure out, how do you locate people? Because if they don't have an address, and Lord knows if they've lost their house, they probably have a ton of other credit issues. They're
Absolutely.
probably not wanting to be seen or found.
That's a
How
great
are you
question.
locating them?
Relatives, Facebook, social media. I'll go on a full private investigating tangent per person if I need to. I mean, sometimes they're easy to find. Sometimes it's like finding a needle in a haystack. And a lot of the times I utilize a couple different platforms. I'm not sure if you have them or not, but True People Search is a free one. TruePeopleSearch.com. Been Verified is a very good one. It costs a little bit. I think it's like $6 a month, maybe. Been Verified and True People Search, they give you a lot of public data, as well as relatives, potential people who even acquaintances, emails and stuff like that. So I'll cross reference all that information, and even nicknames, you know what I mean? Nicknames you can find in Facebook a lot. So like, that's where I'm able to navigate through the filters on Facebook. You're able to type in the name, type in the city, kind of narrow it down. And depending on your information that you get off the state website, you'll be able to see if there's a middle initial, or that you're able to kind of get an idea to somehow search filters. Sometimes you don't find them. Sometimes it's just like you kind of got to bite your tongue and move on to the next deal and don't put too much time into it.
Yeah.
And but a lot of the times, I mean, the overages are a little more tricky because it's just they don't have a residence to go to, and you don't know. So your best bet is finding somebody on Facebook, or a relative, somebody they're
Yeah,
recently
makes
posted in a tag with, or something along those lines, and just make sure you're reaching out to them with value rather
Did
than
you
trying
say
to.
Been Verified? Is that the other one?
Been Verified, yeah, correct. Been
BEEN
Verified,
Verified?
Yep.
Okay.
correct.
Interesting. I haven't heard of that one. No, that's useful. Thank you. And I suppose it's a whole other psychological game to try to figure out how to get people to trust you, but that's a whole other thing. I wanted to ask, you mentioned how there's going to be a lot more foreclosures possibly happening in 2024. Well, actually, let me back up. When are the COVID foreclosure property extensions going to expire? You mentioned something about that.
COVID forbearance ends in like literally their end. It's like going to be like March 7th, I think, is when COVID forbearance officially ends. You're not going to be able to get any more extensions on anything. So after that, they're gonna climb for a little bit, because a lot of people have no idea what COVID forbearance actually did, and now they're gonna have to come up with it, and that lump sum at the end. So a lot of the times they're just COVID forbearance. Ultimately, it was a ploy for banks to make a lot more money. And essentially they look at it in a long-term advantage, in a long-term situation, just like they do a mortgage. So they're gonna, over the course of 30 years, they're gonna get this much money. But they're saying, if we give out this COVID forbearance and allow them to milk it for a couple months, we're gonna create an issue come a year from now, or 2 years, when they can't pay it back. So they're gonna be able to collect on their debt that much sooner by foreclosing.
Yeah, so you're
Banks
expecting
are-
quite a lot of foreclosures happening very soon, I would imagine.
Yeah, as they start coming up, yeah, they're really gonna start flooding the markets. I mean, right now, just since 2021, they're literally at 168% increase. And it's
And
just
I would
gonna
imagine
increase
that
up.
there'd be like upside down too, because that there may be like so many extensions that they got that at this point,
Exactly.
there's
And those are
nowhere
gonna
to
be
like salvage it for them.
exactly. And
Okay.
those are gonna be a lot of the times, it would be a good opportunity or a good lead for a short sale because their arrears are so high, they're in the 80s, $90,000 range. A short sale to counteract that would work a little bit. So I mean, it depends on your investment strategy. If you're trying to buy and hold, if you're trying to just you're trying to pull some money out of an equity position, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
really,
So the next question I have, you mentioned how there's going to be more foreclosures also happening in 2024 when the higher mortgage rate properties will begin to become too expensive for people. What would stop people from refinancing at that point before they go into foreclosure? Or is it like they missed a payment and then once you miss a payment, you can't really
once you get that notice of default and you've been behind that far, you can't do a cash out refinance
right?
because you're in foreclosure pretty much. You have a pre-foreclosure state and your mortgage lender and any other mortgage lender won't allow that because you've been marked as a flat and you've been flagged for pre-foreclosure or foreclosure. And
Yeah.
essentially you can't do a HELOC, you can't pull any equity out, and you essentially you got to ride it out. But banks don't know a lot of subject to offers, which are, I mean, they know about it. That's why they call it due on sale sometimes. And we can talk about that here in a second. I'm not too sure if you know about due on sale, but essentially banks don't know of the creative options because we're not bringing it to their light and we're able to take on and help their situations prior to it ever getting to the bank. So that's how we're able to essentially add that value and be able to, if you're able to get them before that notice of default, which isn't likely, I mean, at that point, you're just calling a regular lead and it's not foreclosure or pre-foreclosure. So
Right.
as soon as that you get that notice of default is how we recognize it as a pre-foreclosure.
Okay, well, I've asked you quite a few questions. I'll let you go, but I just want to thank you and I'm excited about reaching out.
You bet. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Um,
I don't know, you're gonna have time at the end of your slide to go over a couple of questions as far as actual examples.
yeah, absolutely.
All
I apologize. I was just reading a couple comments in the chat. Yeah, refinancing is definitely difficult due to credit, but once you got that pre-foreclosure flag, there is no refinancing out of that situation. There's loan modifications, which essentially the banks are there to just take whatever equity you have and restructure you into a position that you could potentially default down the road again.
And-
Honestly, banks have not a care in the world if you're gonna default. They honestly want you to default. So,
In the loan modifications, there's some very strict rules for the bank, for qualifications you have to meet before they even consider a loan modification. Most of it
yeah, that's a
fix your income problem.
absolutely, absolutely. There's a very particular steps that they take as far as accepting and qualifying people who are going into a loan modification situations or stuff like that. There's also one thing I kind of really didn't cover as much either when you're in the foreclosure situation. There's um homeowners assistance programs, which allows you to kind of do state programs to alleviate arrears, which from state to state they vary, and it can be for anywhere from like $20,000 to $49,000. And those will essentially wipe out all of the arrears, which will only leaving you with your acquisitions cost or your closing cost or any rehab you have to do. So essentially that could be a really good win-win because you're able to save them out of a situation. That's actually what I'm doing on a property in Arizona. I have a property in Florence right now that it was a foreclosure. The guy's actually able to stay in the property because his income has significantly improved over since the time he got into default. He was able to utilize a COVID forbearance. We gave him enough time to actually improve his financial state. So he was able to qualify, or he had more money coming in and was able to fix the loan situation. So what we did is we utilized a state program to wipe out the arrears, and we took control of the property and restructured it back to him on a wraparound mortgage. And he was able to pay the additional mortgage that we were able to set up, as well as he was comfortably able to live and like support his lifestyle as well as his father's, who was also in a pretty rough health situation. So I mean, we were able to take on a few things for collateral, as well as a couple IRS checks that he was intending to sign over to us as we proceed through that deal. So that was a really big thing on that state program. They were able to wipe out $29,000 in arrears, which left us with a $6,000 acquisitions fee and then $6,000 in closing costs. So a total of 14,000 rather than 45,000. So it was a tremendous value add right there, just for the source of, I guess, our knowledge as far as having that foreclosure experience.
So Aaron, I've seen it before, and through the process, somebody owns a house, the mortgage company that may have originally issued the loan, they sell that off to somebody else. And have you seen that happen in that?
Yeah, it happens. It happens all the time. It's a
Yep.
very, very common occurrence. And most of the times when you're still in that pre-foreclosure thing, bam, all you got to do is call up that original lender and they'll be able to bring it back. You know what I mean? They'll be able to, they'd be more than happy to say, all right, they'll get you logged back into the situation, figure out all your account information, and kind of go through that source as it goes. But yeah, it transfers all the time. Most of the time, depending on the state, the homeowner has to verify and sign off on that transfer. And that kind of leads me to another example. I have a property up here. This guy's 73 years old. His wife has medical problem after medical problem since 2018. Has been literally on her deathbed since probably 2018. A terrible situation. But this servicer transferred title or transferred this deed, which was 7 times in one day for one instance. And which is extreme case of mortgage fraud, as well as some notary fraud. And there was just a big loss, not a lawsuit yet, but it's about to be a lawsuit. We're going to help this guy kind of go through a lawsuit with the state, as well as the mortgage lender who transferred the deed 7 times. But
Wow.
it happens all the time. The bank transfers, and most states you have to sign, the homeowner has to sign off on it. But in this instance, they transferred without notifying the seller, and they did it 7 times. So it's kind of, this guy really got the bad end of the stick. He originally bought the house for 440, and during those 7 transfers, his principal balance went up from 480,000 with his interest up to like 660. So when he went to go refinance to pay for some of his wife's medical bills, he got denied on his refinance, and he had no idea that he was even in default. So I mean, it was a terrible situation. But hopefully with this lawsuit, we'll be able to help him out and be able to get him back on his feet. He's like 73 years old, working 60 hours a week.
Came across a guy in Dallas. He hadn't paid a mortgage payment in like 8 or 9 years. So trying to dig into the story, that's kind of what happened. Is the original mortgage company transferred it out, and never did their paperwork right. So then every subsequent year, 2-3 times a year, this thing would get traded off to somebody else. And he just kept going back to court and saying, you and I don't have a contract. I don't owe you money. So it just kind of chased around for almost a decade.
Ouch.
Crazy stories happen when you get in that foreclosure.
Yeah, I've come
World.
across things, and that's the real thing about getting a title report coming up on things that you have no idea. You're looking to purchase a property and things are coming up, such as title transfers and deed transfers and things like that. And it's just a lot of things get overlooked, especially when somebody's doing like a quit claim on a foreclosure. Don't ever do a quit claim on a foreclosure, just because there's could be several other liens that are burdening the property. Make sure if you're gonna do that, open up escrow, get a title search before you do a quit claim. It's gonna save you thousands and thousands of dollars, because you never know, somebody could have just a child support lien on their hands. So here in Colorado, the property is in.
And so they bounced that around until nobody really knew what the actual amount was.
He wanted to sell but could never pay off the amount.
No,
So,
so in Colorado, the housing authority, when it goes to there, like I was with him in his house and he was on the phone with them and he kept getting bounced around on the phone for 2 hours almost. And he was still on when I left. And they would never give him a payoff amount of what he owed. So he could talk to investors, me or whoever else he was talking to about selling it. They would never give him the information.
who is the Colorado Housing Authority? Is that like like a homeless, not a homeless, I'm sorry, a state funded program, or?
I think so. Because he's like, that's not who my original loan was with. So I
Mhm.
think when it went into foreclosure, it went to the housing authority.
The housing authority, it sounds like something that he may have done as an attempt to postpone the auction or cover their arrears, like a homeowner's assistance program, where it removes those arrears. Because we have a system up here like that, and it's the Alaska Housing Authority, and they
Okay.
offer a system where it's a homeowner's assistance program where if you have a homeowner in default, they try and remove the arrears.
Mm. Yeah,
So if he
I haven't been
qualified
able
for that,
to check out the whole thing yet. He ended up going to auction. But he was basically upside down. He made like 2 mortgage payments since he bought the house in 2021.
all right.
So he was so far upside down on it and behind. But yeah, it was quite the learning curve for sure. But yeah, I haven't been able to dig into the housing authority, but I've seen other houses that are in that on the auction, on the pre-foreclosure that are under that.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'd have to look into that. I think the Colorado Housing Authority, they could just be the trustee who handles all the foreclosures. That could be what that is just a trustee or a foreclosure attorney who handles and lists all the properties for foreclosure. So that may be the situation there. Yeah, it's actually Cook Inlet Housing Authority is what it's called up here, not Alaska Housing Authority. But yeah, I definitely think that could be the attorney trustee is what that is. That's who would put the notice of default and tape it to the door if in the event of default or foreclosure. Is that in Denver?
Sorry, I muted myself. So his house was in northern Colorado, not quite Denver. But I've seen other people in the northern Colorado area that have been under the same situation. I was just gonna Google it here real quick, see what kind of information I could get on it. Because I haven't really been able to check it out. But yeah, it was an unfortunate situation, but we were able to help him in time.
Yeah, I understand. Sometimes that's just the way it comes down to, and as long as you're doing what you can and adding the value and kind of, you don't want to stick too much time onto it, but at the same time, if there's the availability to help out, obviously you got to do what you can to help that out, but you don't want to overthink it or cloud your judgment by analysis paralysis. Kind of essentially what that is just over digging in too much research, you know what I mean?
Right.
So with a couple tips for success, I know a lot of the times when I'm doing any cold calling and reaching out to any homeowners and stuff like that, most debt collectors are constantly calling these people who are in default, right? Or even people who are trying to collect on their credit cards or any late bills, or any debt collectors are trying to constantly call these people in foreclosure. Most of the time, even prior to foreclosure, just because that's probably the last bill that they're letting go. Essentially what that means is when you're calling these people, you gotta literally add with value. I've been emphasizing that quite a bit today, is being able to do that, but that's ultimately what your goal is to do. You don't want to come across the point of coming at it like a wholesale assignment, and they feel that. They literally on the phone call, I know when you're talking to somebody, you can feel their emotion essentially through their phone by their responses, if they're sighing and stuff like that. You can kind of feel that energy through that phone. So you need to make sure that energy is on point and being inviting and sympathizing for them. So approach that with value and let them know that, you're not there to collect the money, you're not there to collect a fee, you're there to help them. And that's what's really going to separate you from other investors, is being able to add that value. Because most of these people they're just coming out there, especially new investors. I get it though, but most investors are coming at it with the point of, all right, I got to close my deal. I got to get some cash flow coming in. And I got to get moving. Like that's a big thing. And that's kind of ultimately what spun my wheels for the longest time as a new investor. It was trying to find my right area. So find your right area. And I highly recommend foreclosures, as this is ultimately what I feel is the easiest deal to come by, as long as you're good at helping people. If you have that bone in your body that you care about other people's emotions, other people's feelings, and being able to understand and sympathize that they're down in the dirt too. We've all been there at one point, regardless of our financial situation. So regardless of what barrel they're in, try and help them out and be able to add that service and that value to them. And eventually that deal is going to come back around. There is a guy named Cole Hatter, which I really reside my business around, and he patented a logo called Make Money Matter. And if you're not making your money matter, you're not providing the purpose to the community that it needs. It's empowered by greed. But if you're making your money matter, you're giving a purpose to what you're doing and providing a value to somebody, that money's going to come back around. So that deal that you're trying to call, that person you're trying to help, don't forget about the deal. It'll come around at the end. Just build the rapport, be their friend when they need it the most. And that's what's going to really separate you from everybody else. Because I know everybody hates getting called when they got a debt or something. Probably the
I
last
think
thing you
the
want.
foreclosure market is the best part in this whole industry, and how to help people.
100%. There's a book called The Go Giver. I have it somewhere. It's an extremely powerful book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. I forgot who it's written by, but it's called The Go-Giver, and it's an extremely good book, and it teaches you the 5 laws of stratospheric success, and it's kind of what empowered my business into moving and assisting people out of foreclosure. And then that's where it really resided. And I partnered up with some other individuals that really, we took this foreclosure process to another level and built another company called Sanctuary Housing Initiative. And that's where we go full circle by providing housing to the homeless, the victims of domestic violence, and other kids, just and kids who are in a bad situation, drugs and stuff like that, rehab houses. So that's really just our intention, is to provide value to the community. And I came from a spot where I wasn't exactly in a good position mentally, physically, financially, you know, so I understand what it's like to be at that bottom of the barrel and to be able to relate. And oftentimes what's going to get you this deal is being able to add that value and relate, give them a story that you can relate to, ask them how they're doing and what, you know, try and like talk to them and figure out what their goals in their life are, you know, figure out how to motivate them. And oftentimes I've gotten to the point where I'm pitching real estate investing to these people to try and offer them a different option. You know what I mean? I've seen what it can do for me, and I've seen what it can do for other people. I've helped quite a bit of other investors that I've helped quite a bit of other investors that will
So,
be able to use this information forever.
Aaron, you talked about calling a lot. You're reaching out and calling these homeowners, but I do know there's other people that rely on text messaging, and I know people that make a whole career out of what they call door knocking. Is actually going
Yeah,
because people get in this spot because they get the bank calls, the credit card companies calling, utility companies calling, every investor under the sun's calling. They just stop answering the phone. And sometimes the only way to get hold of them is to show up at the door, knock, and say, "I'm here to help you." Do you use that strategy at all?
I don't personally door knock.
Yeah.
Up here in Alaska, it's not really the place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of signs, the long driveways. You're gonna get shot if you walk down somebody's driveway, especially somebody in a foreclosure situation.
Yeah.
Walking through a neighborhood isn't as bad, but everything up here is pretty rural. So door knocking. There is one person up here that's door knocking in Anchorage and Eagle River as a sub-2 student. Her name is Kimberly Land. You guys should definitely reach out to her if you're doing door knocking. Reach out to her on Facebook. She's extremely good at door knocking and she gets straight to it. I haven't done a lot of door knocking up here. She's got a big set on her, I should say, for being able to go out and do that. I do texting often. So when I'm cold calling and I'm not getting into contact with somebody, I'll resort to text messages, Facebook messages, any Instagram. If I can find somebody on Instagram, I will. I'll message them. I call a whole bunch of numbers on the do not call list as well. So I mean, I don't hesitate to try. So I mean, action is everything. With you guys' action and our services allow you guys to literally scale your businesses to a whole other level this year. Honestly, it's extremely powerful being able to utilize this service as well as just chase foreclosures in general.
So what kind of things could we put together? We're bringing you a deal. What kind of information do you want to have us to have a good handle on before we call?
So a lot of the times I would like, I mean, I'm not asking you guys to get into contracts and stuff like that, but at most, I would like a verbal agreement. That way it's just gonna help us. But if you have a lead that you've already broken the ice with, but you don't know how to close yet, feel free to reach out. I'll help close it and we'll JV on the deal. As far as what was your question again? I'm sorry.
What kind of information do you want from us before we reach out to you?
So we would need mortgage statements. A picture of a mortgage statement would be best. We need to know what their PITI is. That's payment, taxes, interest, and insurance. That's their total monthly payment on that. I also need to know a principal balance, what their total principal balance is. All these numbers are also going to help me writing up the contract in the future, but this is also going to help me determine how to help you guys the best and which deal structure is going to best fit for you guys. And if obviously, as each individual reaches out to me, I'm going to ask you guys what your investment strategy is. Obviously, you're chasing foreclosures, but are you doing it for buy and holds? Or are you doing it for wholesaling? And that will help me be able to get an idea on what your best options are, whether that's doing a subtail or you're just listing it on the MLS, you're doing a novation agreement, whatever that may be, we're going to be able to help you figure out that best approach. So that's kind of how we'll be able to JV. And if you want to JV on a couple deals, we're more than willing to do that before we start getting into that flat fee where you guys can take off and hit the ground running. So if that's what it needs and you guys want that extra shoulder to lean on, knowing you guys have that partner and somebody who's willing to get on the phone and close with you, I'll be able to do that with you. We'll just we'll have to be doing it on a JV agreement, and that JV agreement essentially holds my interest into the deal as well as yours as the investor. So it's extremely beneficial for you to put in a JV agreement in place, regardless of whether you're working with me or any other investor. Absolutely put it on paper, regardless of your situation.
And then that's awesome for people who haven't done a deal at all, or even some people like, I'm gonna call you because I have one I came across. I just don't do them often enough to be expert at them. So when they come up and they're a little wonky, I want to call you because you're the expert. So,
I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'd definitely be happy to answer any questions you guys have at the moment. I will put in the group, not in the chat, but in the group, I will put some information that anybody who wants to continue chasing this foreclosure strategy or start investing some time into it and trying to get an idea on if that's their niche and that's something they want to do, I will put the information necessary in the group to be able to understand this is the information I need to get from the seller. This is what I need to present to him. So that'll be able to help us out. I also have 2 other partners that are going to be doing this foreclosure service with me. So you're either going to get in contact with me or my partner, Tom or Devin. So, I mean, we're going to have a full system going here soon. I'm doing a majority of the auction postponements and all the loan modifications right now, but we're going to start incorporating them into the business here soon as well. So we're going to be a lot more hands on deck, be able to spread the knowledge a lot better and being able to incorporate that with everybody's businesses and times.
appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Mercy's here been patiently waiting. I know she's got a deal she wants to discuss. Let's see if I can have her unmute.
Who is
Hi,
that?
Shane.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you.
I know you've been patiently waiting. Tell us about what's
Yeah.
going on.
So the property I came across actually came to me. My grandma is co-owner of the property. She co-signed for my cousin's boyfriend, and He is in the construction industry, lost his job during COVID. So he took advantage, if you will, of the COVID forbearance. Since then, he was able to get back on and start making payments again. Then he lost his job again. And so he has not been able to make payments since September of 2022. So we are basically a little over $8,000 in the rears. And I was the one that asked the question about the mortgage servicer selling or transferring over. And I just found out right before I got on this Zoom that they transferred it. And they transferred it as of February 2nd. So when I contacted them, the new servicer, they were like, we literally have like 60 days before anything's going to even do anything. So we don't have any notice of default. There's like nothing. So they're not really technically in foreclosure yet. So I guess that just bought us a little bit of time. But I'm kind of in a loss because I have no idea where to start, like how to get them out of this. They don't have the money to pay their arrears, and it's in a part of Stockton where, I mean, it's close by the hospital, so you could technically do like an MTR. I'm not interested in holding it. I'm just more interested in trying to get them help, because I've been there before. I was on the other side.
Absolutely. All right. I'd definitely be happy to help you out. As far as the numbers, I'd really have to kind of see it. I'd love to be able to get your information,
Okay.
and that way we
filled
can
out the
talk about it.
form. I filled out Cindy
Yeah.
and Shane's form. So I put as much information on there, but I can get you like copies of the mortgage statement. I also have the information of the new servicer. And then I also have pictures that I took yesterday of the property. And I do have a verbal agreement with them. They're just wanting me to help them in any way possible that we can, because they just want to prevent that foreclosure on his credit and also my grandma's credit, right? So
Yeah,
we're just trying
absolutely.
to get them out of it.
Are they trying to move, or what is their ultimate goal? They're obviously trying to stay in the property, right?
No, they don't want the house at all. Yeah, they really, he wants to sever ties. And I asked him, like what is your next move on this? And I said, you asked him if he had a place to go, or if, we're gonna be displacing him. And he said no, he has somewhere to go. And he could be out of the property within a couple of weeks. So he literally doesn't want anything to do with the property.
Okay, that sounds.
Oh, I think we lost
I
him.
think we lost Aaron. But and we'll get Aaron's opinion on this. So sometimes when they transfer that, you are correct in that they are no longer in foreclosure because the new mortgager hasn't seen late payments. So this may have bought you enough time. They don't want to be in the house. I would say, again, we'll look at the numbers later. Can we do a subject to and buy them out of the house, get them moved on, so then we can go out and find a wholesale deal?
Yeah.
But I think we're at those numbers with Aaron.
Yeah, I talked to Chris and Colin too, and they mentioned that they have so the property or the loan is an FHA loan, so it could even be assumable, I guess. I don't know if that would be better than doing a sub 2. I guess you would kind of avoid that whole due on sale clause issue if you do an assumable loan. But yeah, I don't really know.
It depends on your exit strategy, right? There's
Yeah.
Is that
I apologize. I don't have it in my computer died.
aha, you're unplugged and the battery ran out finally, huh?
Yeah, I didn't even see it. It didn't even tell me it was battery low. I was like, oh no. I apologize about that.
Sometimes you make Cindy mad, she'll just wipe you out.
No
That is
worries,
a true
but
story.
I think we definitely need to connect. I'm sorry, who were we speaking to just a second ago? I lost all the messages and everything.
It's Mercy's.
Mercy, all right, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So I definitely want to connect with you. It sounds like it could be a deal. You said it's in, where did you say it was, Stockton?
Stockton, California. Yeah.
All right, I think I actually have somebody who would actually buy a house there.
Okay.
So that could be a good win-win. See, that's the power of networking, being able to communicate with people and just being able to explain a situation can help a deal get together and close deals together. That's just the power of JVing and networking together. But I do believe I have a buyer there for sober living houses, so I think that'll be awesome. We'll
Yeah, and
definitely.
so how would that work? Because I also have someone who's interested, but I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of providing her with the information at the same time, trying to figure out how I need to, like, what my responsibilities are. And, I also don't want to not do my due diligence for her as well as the end buyer. But she is very interested for that fact. She wants to do the sober living strategy. So would that be something that like you and I can discuss and then maybe bring
Oh
her
yeah,
into it and
absolutely,
see? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have somebody that's interested in purchasing it and stuff like that, let's ride that.
Oh, well, oh,
Um,
well, at least we got them froze on the screen.
yeah. I think that's all that I have, Shane.
I
I
think that might
appreciate
have
you
been my
sending.
internet or something.
Worried about you. We're thinking tsunami. So maybe one of them Chinese balloons. Well, Kim was asking, what different strategies are available depending on the exit strategy of the end buyer, right? So in this case, a subject to might be a viable means for the house because now we're not in that foreclosure state, right? We have the homeowner willing to leave, wanting to work with you.
Exactly. It sounds like
It's a
a
very
plain
viable
Jane
option
simple
here.
sub two.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty straightforward sub two. You already have a verbal agreement. Your seller wants to sell. You know how far behind they are. I mean, that's ultimately it's you're getting to the point of now you need to know what the value of the property is worth and what the value of the note is. So you have the arrears, you got the note, and you have the value of the property. That's when you're able to figure out if you have a deal or not. If that's going to be something that's either going to cash flow you or you're going to be able to get an assignment fee off of that. So I don't know what your process is on that. Yeah, I guess you already have a buyer lined up, so it would be an assignment. You would be assigning that sub two contract over to your end buyer. And then for that price will determine on the to determine your assignment will depend on how much cash flow you're getting or how much your seller would be able or your buyer would be able to achieve each month. And it's normally about $100 of cash flow is $1,000 as an assignment fee. That's normally how like the sub two community does it. For every $100,000 in cash flow that you're assigning, you're gonna get $1,000 in assignment. Does that answer your question, Kim?
Yes, sorry, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. But there's definitely multiple exit strategies that you could do with that property. I mean, as you don't have to take it, a sub two would be a good property, a good idea to one, be a buy and hold. I guess if you want to assign it, but there could be enough equity in that property where you could do it all yourself and not have to bring in an extra partner. So if you wanted to list it on the MLS, you could pay that $8,000 in reinstatement or postpone the auction, which what we would do for you, postpone that auction, which gives you enough time to comfortably sell it on the MLS with a realtor to be able to collect any additional equity out of it. Obviously, you're gonna have closing costs and commissions, which you're gonna have to take into effect when you're underwriting your deal. So if there's not the amount for your 8%, which is your typical closing costs and commissions, so if that doesn't fluctuate into the numbers of the deal very well, that's when you're gonna have to go with an assignment. But if you have like 40, 50, 60 grand in extra equity after your 8%, that's going to closing costs and commissions. I would rather sell that property on the MLS all day without having to assign it for $20,000 and let somebody else get the equity. If that makes sense.
What do they say, Aaron? Buyers are liars and sellers are worse. So
Exactly.
when you're in the foreclosure realm, I've noticed is you really have to double check everything, you know. And sometimes they might not even know there's another lien on the house, a mechanic lien that wasn't paid, or another tax lien. We came across that recently.
Yeah. A
But
solar
there's-
lien, a pool, whatever,
Right.
mechanics liens or child
The
support
real-
liens.
So when you're running your numbers and you think, oh, well, this is tight, but I can make it, you really got to make sure that everything's been checked and there's not another hidden gotcha waiting to get you at the last minute.
100%. Yeah, there's always several difficulties that'll pop up throughout a deal, and it's how you're able to navigate them, and the knowledge you know how to navigate them will determine how that deal portrays out. So absolutely.
All
I
right.
like how you're putting the notes in the side. It's good.
Trying to keep up with you.
No worries.
Them gems.
Well, I'm
you know?
definitely happy to do this once a month with you guys if needed. That way we can get deeper into topic and stuff like that. I want to just essentially go over all the basics and maybe, just essentially tell you not to go for the shiny object syndrome. I get, seeing all these pictures of assignments or people saying, oh yeah, I made this deal at this much, or the short-term rental market is this powerful, you need to go here, the foreclosures. I mean, there's just so many different ways to look at it. And it really comes down to what type of person you are. If you like customer service, if you like dealing with hospitality and stuff like that, you're going to probably want to steer more towards short-term rentals. But foreclosures, if you're trying to help people and impact the community, making a difference with not only yourself, but I mean, the feeling of helping somebody out of foreclosure. I mean, I remember the first time I did it, it was like, wow, we really just did this. We just, this person saved. It was like, I have testimonials and videos of people in tears saying, thank you. Just being able to save their credit. That's not even giving them any money to close the deal. I mean, you can literally walk into a deal without paying them any cash to the seller.
And you've helped them greatly.
And you're deeply helping them. Like,
Yeah.
There's not a dollar amount that you could put on it, because the amount of burden it could put on you in the next 7 to 10 years is just unparalleled to what any dollar amount could put on it right at that moment. So I mean, as utilizing your debt, even people who are in a less fortunate situation, their credit is still everything. You know what I mean? Even to people, Bill Gates, his credit is everything because he utilizes his debt in the correct way, unlike somebody who's less fortunate. They splurge by and stuff like that, but their credit is still valuable to them. So being able to save their future is extremely beneficial. That's what I do. That's why I do what I do, is essentially just being able to help people out of the situation that I was once in. So.
All right. We appreciate your time. Any last minute questions for Aaron? Again, maybe next time we'll be able to do more of a whiteboard, go through some numbers and some examples. And that
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely do that.
it really help people understand the process, what to look for, what's a good deal, what are some options. So
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely do that, and I'll keep that in mind. But the next thing I'll do is I'll put all that information in a post on that in the new group, and we'll make sure everybody has the information to be able to take forward and take initiative. Be
Anybody-
intentional with your time is everything is what I gotta say is essentially intentional with your time and time block your day. That way, you're being 1% better every day.
If anybody found value in this, please share it with people. Invite them into our group. I know we were at 399 members today, and I know Cindy was really hoping to get that 400 mark, but didn't quite make it before the Zoom. So, but again, Aaron, I appreciate it. Tell Tom not to be a stranger. He can come on too.
All right, will do. Absolutely.
All
You
right.
guys have a wonderful night and take care. We'll talk soon.
Stay warm up there.
Oh, will do.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.